theme of this first talk is Kotlin JS, the Kotlin JavaScript transpiler. So all the slides I'm going to be using and all the code is available at that URL there. I've got a lot more than half an hour's material. Sorry, but Zara will be waving frantically and giving me, warm-up signs, or wrap-up signs. So whenever I get near the end, I may talk very quickly. So apologies about that in advance. But all the stuff is available at that Git repo there. So who here is a full-stack developer? Yay, don't we all love being full-stack developers? Don't you love using 6 languages in every single project? Doesn't that make us happy as developers? Yeah. So as you know, these days, if you're a modern developer, you like to have one language in the browser and then one language in the server, and then if you're doing cloud as well, maybe another language for that, because we love switching between JavaScript and Kotlin and Go and something like that. That's all brilliant. And we love knowing about multiple build systems, and we love keeping multiple markup languages and frameworks in our heads. That's brilliant. Yeah. So to ease the pain, it seems like every new programming language that you get these days has a transpiler, okay? So this is incredibly fashionable. So if you do Scala, there's Scala JS. If you do Clojure, there's Clojure script and so on. So Kotlin is no different. If you do Kotlin, there's Kotlin JS, which will take your Kotlin and transpile it into JavaScript. So this talk is all about, is that any good, okay? And should you use it, given that, I don't know if you've seen this before, but one thing in JavaScript land is immediately being replaced with something else, okay? So no sooner are you comfortable with Angular than you should be using React. No sooner are you comfortable with React than you should be using Vue. No sooner are you comfortable with Vue than you should be using Angular again, and so on, yeah? So in the land of JavaScript, everything is constantly changing, so is it worth it, yeah? And the answer from Kotlin JS is probably yes, okay? So there is a bit of confusion though, because it's still the same Kotlin transpiler, but they've very quickly been coming up with new ways of using it. So I hate to say it, but if you go to the Kotlin website at the minute, the information you'll be given is out of date, okay? So what I'd like to do is take you slowly and carefully through the different ways that you can run the Kotlin transpiler, and you can work out the way that you want to make a start with, okay? So at the moment, there's 4 different ways that you can do it, and you'll find tutorials for all of them on the internet, sometimes mixed together, which doesn't do anybody any good, okay? So this is just going to be the evolution of Kotlin in the browser in 4 parts. So the first way is the oldest way to do it, and let's see if I can just bring up the demo here. So this isn't a bad place to start off if all you want to do is just get a little bit of Kotlin running in the browser, okay? So what I've got here is I've got a little index page, and I'll just run it. And here we are here. So hit the button, get some output. Yay, okay? So what's actually going on? Whoops, where are we? There we are. So should have made this a bit smaller, but never mind. So we've got a little program.kt file here, and you can see what we're doing is we're calling a little function show DSL, okay? And this is directly copied from one of the examples we have in our Kotlin course, where we're just showing people how to create a DSL from scratch, okay? So this is just standard Kotlin code that I copied and pasted into this demo, okay? There's one thing they had added into it, which is the ability to use the document object. So because this is Kotlin JS, I have the document object immediately available, so we can say get element by ID and that kind of thing. And then in the code for the DSL, we've got standard DSL-y stuff. So if you've done any Kotlin, you'll have written a DSL, I'm sure. So the only thing that makes this different from regular Kotlin is that whenever I'm generating my output, well, I'm doing good old-fashioned DOM programming, okay? So it's a standard Kotlin code, works perfectly fine with the addition of the DOM object. And then how am I actually running it? Well, I've got my little index.html here, and you can see all that I've done is I've included two files. So we've got Kotlin.js, so that's the JavaScript version of the Kotlin standard library. And then we've got this JavaScript file here, so that's the output from the transpiler, okay? So all of the code that I've written got bumped into a JavaScript module named after the project, okay? So I've got my little button here, and then whenever you click on the button, well then we're going to go into the generated module and just call the JavaScript version of that Kotlin function, you know, the one that I had there. Everybody okay with that? Yeah, so works just fine. How are we actually building the thing? Well, it's all being done by the build.gradle. So here we are here. And all we're actually doing is we're running the Kotlin to JS transpiler. There's a little bit of ugliness though. Once the transpiler has done its thing, because this is Gradle, all the output gets put into a jar file. So you have to go to the jar file and manually extract all the generated JavaScript and then throw it somewhere. You know, so in this case, I'm throwing it into the web folder in the project. Okay, so that's the ugliness. You know, you have to go to the JetBrains website and then copy and paste over that assemble web task. Okay, or else write your own version. Yep. The only other thing that's specific to Kotlin.js is just this bit here, where we're declaring the JavaScript version of the standard library as a dependency. Yeah. But if you do that, then you see here we've got the web folder, because that's where we told it to unpack it to. And inside there's the JS version of the standard library, and then the JS version of all the Kotlin code that I wrote. And that makes sense, okay? Yeah. So if all you want to do is transpilation, you know, and that's it, well then the way on the JetBrains website is the best way to do it. And the good news is it just works. Okay. So I've been playing with this and trying to use all the features of the Kotlin language, and everything seems to work just fine. Okay. So happy days. That's our iteration 1. But of course, we probably want to take things a little bit further than that. Just bring this back up. Please come. Yay. There we are. So as I say, we can walk through using the DSL, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. So problem is, these days, you're probably going to want to call node modules, okay? So it's not going to be enough just to use standard JavaScript and the document object and so on. You're going to want to bring in the NPM libraries that you care about, yeah? And you're probably going to want to get Webpack to smooch everything together into one big file and then deploy it to a test server. So the standard way of doing that, which has recently been deprecated, okay, so I hasten to add you shouldn't be using this anymore, but you'll see it, you know, mentioned very frequently, is Kotlin front end. So what this is it's a plugin produced by people at JetBrains, and it will let you load in node modules, it will let you run Webpack, it will let you start up the Webpack test server and so on, okay? So here's the build file, show you this in code in just a minute. So we're going out to a separate repo here to load in the plugin. We're listing it as a dependency, all good, yada, yada. And then you see here, this is where we start putting in the options, okay? So we can specify what kind of modules what we're going to be loading from. We specify the name of the JavaScript file that we want all our stuff compiled into. We can specify the names of the node modules that we want to go out and load. So you see there, I'm going to use the Axios library for contacting RESTful services. And then you can put in here your Webpack settings. settings, okay? So in this case, I'm saying to Webpack, okay, whenever you're merging everything together and doing the transpilation and so on, we'll look inside source main web for content, okay? So look inside there for HTML files and image files and anything else. So let me just show you that actually running. So go back in here. Sorry, I've got a restricted screen size here, so just shut down that first one. Here we are here. Yay! So here's the build file I was mentioning previously. All good. And then here's my program KT, okay? So in main there, I'm going to go out and try and access a RESTful service. So I've got a little RESTful service running, and I want to go out and download some information about training courses. And in order to do that, I'm using Axios. So this is how you get your interoperability with Node modules. You can say JS module. So whenever you put that annotation in your code, well then it'll go out and do a require and find that module and load it in for you. And then the things that are in that module, well, if you want to call them, you can do that via external declarations, you know, just like in C. So you say to the Kotlin compiler, okay, inside this npm module called Axios, there's a get function, and I can feed it a string and I'll get back some kind of dynamic object. Yeah. So because it's declared with the external keyword, the Kotlin compiler knows it's not provided in your code. It'll go out and look for it inside the module. Everybody okay with that? That makes sense? Yeah, cool. So here's my index page here. Couldn't be simpler. All I'm doing is I'm referring to main.bundle.js. So that's the output that will be produced by the front end plugin. Oh, and I should say, if you declare a main module, that's automatically linked into the onload event of the window object. You know, so that's why it automatically gets run. So I can go out now and I can run this. So I can go to my little Gradle window here and just say run. And it'll do that Webpack thing. So this is when I pray I actually have the RESTful service running in the background, because I can't remember if I started it or not. Let's find out. Woohoo! I did. Okay. So you see there it successfully went out and used Axios, yeah, to invoke the RESTful service and get the data back. Everybody okay with that? Yeah. Cool. So should you be using this at the moment? No, because they've replaced the front-end plugin with a better plugin. Okay. But there's just one problem. They haven't actually told anybody yet, okay? So it seems to be like a well-kept secret. But what happens is whenever you say new project Gradle, and then one of these two options here, what it does is you get a Gradle build file that uses their new snazzy plugin, which replaces Kotlin front end, okay? And I didn't know this until I ran the wizard, and then I was trying to copy and paste some of those other options into the generated Gradle file until I finally looked at the Gradle window and said, hold on, this thing has dozens of tasks of its own, you know, what's going on here, yeah? So it turns out that whenever you run through this option here, it creates a new project for you, but it's using a brand new plugin. So if I just show you here, I've got this project called Kotlin JS Modern, and inside there you can see first of all this is done using Gradle 5. I'll just delete a few lines so it all fits on the screen there. Sorry for the squish. Yeah. So first of all, because this is done using Gradle 5, the DSL is written in Kotlin. And why not? Yeah, yeah. So this is a Gradle build file written in Kotlin, and it's going to go out and transpile Kotlin JS. Okay, so you can see here we're using this new plugin here. Yeah, so it has the very snazzy name of org JetBrains Kotlin JS. They really need to think of a better name for it, you know. But this now will do the same as the Kotlin front end, yeah, except allegedly it works a lot better. Okay, So this will go out and run the transpiler, but will also bring in node modules and do the whole Webpack thing and so on. Yeah. So you see down there at the bottom, I'm saying I'm targeting the browsers. This will be JavaScript running in the browser, and to the main source set, well, I want to add in as an implementation dependency the node package Axios. Okay. So this is very new and not fully documented yet, but it seems to work very well. It actually works much better than the front end plugin did. I haven't had any problems with this at all. So I can just go in here and say run. Oh yeah. So here's my program.kt. Whoops, get rid of that for a minute. So again, I'm just loading in the Axios module. I have declared a course type in Kotlin JS. I've got this load courses function which goes out and uses Axios. And then in my main method here, well, I want to find two bits of the page. So the bit of the page with an ID of courses display and the bit of the page with an ID of courses button, you know. And whenever somebody clicks on the button, well then I want to load my training courses from the server and load them into the element here, the one that had the ID of courses display. So on my index page, just very simple HTML. So we've got the button with the ID, we've got an unordered list with the ID, and then into this script tag, well, that's where we're referencing the output from Webpack, okay? So I can just go to the generated page, which isn't that one. Hold on. So where's it put the damn thing? Is there another browser window there? Yes, there is. So I can go inside here and say load courses via service, you know, and boom, you know, it just works, okay? So that's probably the way that you want to do it, okay? So if you're starting this from the first time, disregard the information that's on the Kotlin website, disregard all the Google articles you'll find about the Kotlin front-end plugin, yeah? Just run the wizard that's in the latest version of IntelliJ, and then just use the tasks it gives you, okay? You don't need to do anything else, yeah? Apart from write an HTML file that references the generated JavaScript document at the bottom, okay? And then you should be good to go, okay? So if you just want to be transpiling JavaScript, that's the way to do it. But there's one last option to mention, and terminate this. And that's this option here. So just nip back to the slides for a sec. Doo-ba-doo-doo. Live. Yay. So we've talked about the new plugin, yada, yada, yada. So finally, there's a built-in wrapper around React. So quick show of hands, who's written a web application in React before? Yay, lots of people, yep. So as you know, React versus Angular is the new Vue versus Emacs, okay? What about Vue.js? Well, we're not going to admit those people exist, okay? So if you favor Angular as your web framework, you're out of luck, okay? But if you favor React, well, you're in luck because JetBrains have written a wrapper around the create React app script, okay? So what this will do is this will go out and create a React user interface with everything that you need, but with Kotlin JS as the scripting language, okay? And again, it just works. So let me show you a little demo. So all I've done is created a new project, called it Course Booking App, and then I've opened it up in IntelliJ, and I've written a few components. So I can go in here and do a yarn start, not npm start, because we can't make up our minds, you know, but never mind. And I've got this little web application here, and I just hit this button, and again it goes out and fetches some information from the server and displays it here, okay? So I'll show you the code in the slides, just because it's easiest viewed that way. That is when this loads. Yay. So if you've ever seen React at all, you'll know it's about components, okay? So a React component is something that has properties and state, okay? So properties are the values given to it by the parent component, and state are the values that it holds within itself, okay? So a React component has a render method, and that's where we render markup, into the browser, and inside that markup, typically we'll have the values of properties or the values of state and so on, okay? So whenever you're using the Kotlin version of React, you don't embed HTML inside your components. Instead, you use this nice little DSL here, okay? So you see we've got this app component, and whenever it's asked to render itself, well, it's going to render a div containing a header, and then it's going to render a courses table, okay? So this courses table is obviously a component that I've created myself, and I'm saying, okay, whenever you create the courses table, give it a property called the service, yeah? And that service is going to be the courses service for fetching training courses over the network. So here's my courses table component. So again, it's going to have properties, yeah, and it's going to have state, okay? So properties are going to be encapsulated by this interface here, courses table props, and state is going to be encapsulated by courses table state. And it has this little DSL. So whenever the courses table is asked to render itself, well, this is what we're going to get. So we're going to get a div containing button, and then whenever you button, well, we're going to go out and invoke fetch courses. Yeah. So fetch courses is here, and it's going to use the service that I've written to go out and retrieve the courses from the server. And again, this is just standard Kotlin code, just being converted into JavaScript. So whenever we fetch the data from the server, we're going to log it out, and then we're going to change the state of the component. So whenever we say set state courses equals data, well, we're saying, okay, inside the state of the component, there's this thing called courses, okay? So now set it to data, the information retrieved from the server. So the component is now dirty, so it will go out and re-render itself, okay? So there's the top of the table, and there's the bottom of the table there. And again, I can use that JS module annotation to wrap up Axios, just like I was doing before, okay? And everything works very nicely indeed. So everybody okay with those? Yeah? So just to review what we've seen, whenever you start playing with Kotlin JS, there are a bunch of different ways of doing it, all of which you'll find recommended on the web, okay? So you can have a regular Gradle build file that just invokes the Kotlin to JavaScript transpiler, and then you can manually go to the generated jar file and unpack all the JavaScript files, okay? And you can do that if you like. That's what you'll find recommended on the website, but it's a lot of work, yep. Or you can use the Kotlin front-end plugin to import node modules and run Webpack on your behalf. And that's cool, except that's the old news. Okay, so the new way of doing it is this org JetBrains Kotlin JS plugin, which is very nicely built into the latest version of IntelliJ. As I say, the only downside is they haven't got round to telling anybody yet. Okay, I really wish they would. Yeah. And then finally, if you're less concerned about transpiling, if you're not one of these bottom-up learners, if you're a top-down learner and you just want to build something, okay, well, go out and install the create React Kotlin app script, and that will build you a React web application, which just immediately starts running, and then you can just go into it and start writing code in the usual way, yeah, and it'll rebuild everything for you on the fly, okay? So the big question, how am I doing for time, by the way? Oh, excellent, you see, professional trainer. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. Like a horse to the barn, yeah, so final thing, is it worth it? Okay, so all I know is My gut says maybe, okay, yeah? So, let's say you had a bunch of Android developers, yeah, and they were Android developers who'd been working in Kotlin and very productive and so on, and you wanted to move them over to the web, and they knew no JavaScript whatsoever, okay? So yeah, this would be cool, this would be a really good idea. Or let's say you spend most of your time doing server-side stuff, and occasionally you just want to dabble in stuff in the browser and write the odd React front end and so on. Would you use Kotlin JS? Absolutely. Okay. On the other hand, if you had a bunch of rabid JavaScript developers, would you want to convert them over to Kotlin JS? Meh. What would be the benefit? Okay, so it's whenever I was using Kotlin JS, you just get this sense of paranoia, wondering about what the transpiler is doing. Okay, but then of course you stop and you think about that, and you go, hold on, we use TypeScript for everything, and that's transpiling as well. Do I really know what that's doing? And then you're going, hold on, I'm using ES6, yeah, which all that's doing is it's giving you a class syntax which is transpiled to prototypes and prototype chaining and so on anyway. So do I really trust anything I'm currently using? Okay, so as a result of this, I'm now in a state of existential doubt about virtually every browser technology that we're using in the office. So thanks a lot, Kotlin JS. Although that's perhaps not its fault. Okay, so definitely, if you wish to work in the browser and you wish to work in a really nice language, yeah, and you don't want that language to be TypeScript, yeah, well then this definitely seems to be a really good choice, okay? And it's definitely worth sitting down and playing around with, and it's all very open. You can very easily see the generated output. It all seems to be using standard JavaScript patterns for ifs and modules and so on. So, it's definitely worth having a look at. Cool. So, anybody, any questions at all? Yep.
Is there any support for like coroutines with async awaits and all that?
Not that I'm aware of as yet, no. So sadly, they don't seem to have gone anywhere near that. I wasn't brave enough to try it. But given that there is maybe sort of similar functionality in JavaScript, they might give it a go. But that's I think that's one for the future. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
What's the, for your knowledge, with Angular and those great people who use Vue, what's the support like?
0, and that seems to be true for other languages as well. If you look at what the F# and the Scala JS people are doing and so on, everybody wants to wrap up React, because React, as you know, is just a library, whereas Angular gives you a DI framework and a built-in REST client and all of this stuff, So the amount of effort of wrapping up Angular is like orders of magnitude above wrapping up React, yeah? So everybody who does transpilers seems to just wrap up React and say, use that, and then run away bravely. So that just seems to be the form at the minute. Yeah. Cool. Anybody else who isn't an Instill employee or a CEO? Okay. Anybody else? Go on then. Oh yeah, go.
Have you used it for any project?
I've used it for the UIs that we write in our workshops and training courses and all that kind of thing. So, I've written about a few tens of thousands of lines in it, and it hasn't let me down yet. Have we deployed it to actual production code? No, not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
No, not yet. No. Yeah.
Was there anything you find kind of difficult to do in it?
Yeah, well, there's a few things that get really annoying. So first of all, there are things I don't like about the DSL, okay? So for example, you see here where it says attrs, yeah? You have to say attrs. Why attrs? Presumably attrs is short for attributes, and attributes are what you have in HTML, but this isn't HTML, this is a DSL, and a React component is properties, okay? So why, for the love of God, that is called attrs instead of props, I don't know. And I know it's only a tiny thing, and the same number of letters, but it's pissing me off 3 months later, okay? So yeah, that really annoys me, Also in the browser, whenever you use the document object, the event handling seems to be a bit skew-if. You know, like whenever you say document.onload, you know, it doesn't seem to fire at the right time I would expect it to. So I've actually got a call into JetBrains to try and find out what's going on. So everything else with the document object seems to work fine, but there seems to be some weirdness in terms of the timing and the way the event handlers are done. I think because main is added to window onload, and then maybe other things are added off that, you know, and in your normal browser programming, I don't know about you, but I do everything through the document object. I don't go near the window object, so that seems to be introducing some weirdness there as well. Yeah, cool. Anything else? Going once, going twice. Can I finish with 1 minute to go like a real professional? Yay, done, cool. Thank you very much indeed. Cheers. Yeah.
It's a bad time to bring it up, but the company I'm looking for is hiring VB developers, so if there are, and if you are filled with the existential dread, I think the bar is still open.
Yeah.